right, so let it get started. All right, we are recording. All right, once again, thank you everyone for joining us today for the first session of the Employer's Playbook for Talent Fall 2021 series, focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion. My name is Christopher Ledvina. I'm facilitating the series through the Cooperative Education Program at Lakeland. I'm really excited to get started. I think we have a great group of students. We got a great conversation that we're going to have today. I am going to turn it over to Lachey in just a moment, but before I do, I would ask that if you are not one of our panelists, if you could please turn your camera off and keep your microphone muted so that we can have the conversations going smoothly with the students. And afterwards, we will have some time to answer questions. So if you have those while we're in the conversation, just go ahead and save them and we will get to them at the end. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Lachey Guy. Lachey is our Director of Student Diversity, Equity, and Belonging Initiatives at Lakeland, and the perfect person to host this conversation. So without further ado, take it away, Lachey.
All right, good morning everyone, and thank you all for joining us for the first Employer's Playbook session. As Chris mentioned, I'm the Director of Student Diversity, Equity, and Belonging Initiatives. So I oversee all of the student affinity groups here on campus, which includes the groups represented here today. So I think it's important to recognize that diversity and inclusion work is more than just, policies, programs, and head counts. So equitable employers will respect the unique needs and perspectives of their team members and recruits. So I hope you leave this panel, with an enhanced understanding of the ideal inclusive workplace environment for your team and potential new hires. So what I am going to do is I am going to let each student introduce themselves as well as the group that they are representing. So if all the student panelists can turn on your cameras. So there we go. Thank you. And Bora, if you just wanted to turn on your camera.
Lachey, my camera isn't working right now. I have to go into my other device. I'll do that in 10 minutes. Is that okay?
Yep, that is completely fine.
Thank you. Sorry.
Nope, you're okay.
Thank you.
So then why don't we go ahead and start with Elijah?
Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Well, hello everybody. My name is Elijah Santiago. I'm representing Alase Association of Latinx Students, and I'm the president of that organization as well. And I am a senior communication major with a minor in diversity studies.
Thank you. And Amber?
Hi, I'm Amber. I'm a member of BSU, Black Student Union. I am a senior and my major is criminal justice.
Jasmine?
Hi, my name is Jasmine Smith. I am a member of BSU. I am a senior here at Lakeland, and my major is pre-nursing.
And Deborah, even though you're hopping in on another device, you can go ahead and introduce yourself quick.
Sure. First of all, I'm really sorry about the technical issue, but my name is Bora, and I'm the Vice President of Global Student Association. I'm a junior at Lakeland this year, and I'm also majoring in communications, but also Spanish studies.
Awesome, thank you. So we have 10 prepared questions to ask our student panelists. Each of you feel free to answer to the best of your capabilities. If you want to chime in on each other's responses, that is completely fine too. So we will go ahead and start with the first question, which is how do you define an inclusive employer? And we'll start with you, Elijah, or just take some time to think about the question a bit.
Can you say the question again?
Yes, so how do you define an inclusive employer?
I want to say the first thing that comes to my mind is being willing to understand your employees So first steps is taking that willingness to learn their background, learn where they came from, and just take it with heed, and then be able to apply that to the workforce. So just, I think the biggest example for me with ILOS is figuring out each of my members and applying it to our organization, if you guys understand what I mean. So just making it where it's a comfort zone for everybody instead of just me.
Gotcha. Amber?
Yep. I think that the biggest aspect for me, you said defining an inclusive workplace, right? Would be just making sure that, kind of going off what Elijah said, just making sure that people from different backgrounds feel welcomed and that their opinions are as welcomed as everybody else's.
Okay. Jasmine?
I agree with what Elijah and Amber said. Just making sure that the people that you hire or include are diverse, but also knowing that everybody has abilities. So going beyond, what may be perceived as skin color, like disabilities have abilities, everybody could play a part. So just finding out how to accommodate for each person that they can accommodate for you and help you also.
Thank you, Jasmine. Bora?
I think going off of what Jasmine said, understanding that that everybody in the workplace is intersectional. So not looking a person as a member of a certain group, but rather as an individual and what they have to offer. And I think that you include people by listening to them, by making them feel valued, by active listening to them and actually implementing their suggestions or ideas, just making sure that people actually feel like they belong in the environment that they started working in.
Okay, thank you, Bora. Thank you, everyone, for answering that first question for me. So the next question we have for you is, what are the top 3 values you look for in an employer when searching for a job? So just take some time to think about it, and we'll go in the same order, starting with Elijah.
The first one I can think of is validation. So I take team and group communication this semester. And one of the biggest things we focus on is making sure people feel validated, whether it's answering a question or they feel that they're supposed to be where they are. So in the workforce or in an organization or anything, I think the biggest thing is making the people feel like they're supposed to be there, and then that creates the want to be there in a sense. So validation would be my number one. Number two, I would say just effective communication, and make it where there's a very transparent line on how the communication goes, and there's no in betweens, there's no side roads, just one big straight line, and that creates an open zone for you and your employers, or you and your students, or you and your organization members to have that fine line of communication. There's no roadblocks in the way, which will create a divide in a sense. And then three, honestly, I want to say kind of similar to validation, but make yourself a, a servant leader. And what I mean by that is be there for your employers and employees, and even your organizations and students. Just be there for them and be that resource for them, so that they have the willingness to come. And then that's when you can make them feel validated and have that communication going.
Thank you. Amber next.
So first of all, I think, as Elijah said, communication is definitely one of the top values that I look for in an employer. It's just the streamline of ideas and what you want to pass on. Like if there's no communication, then it's a really hostile environment generally. I also think that integrity in a company is important to me, as well as accountability, holding everybody accountable, like you're responsible as an employee or as a company.
Jasmine?
Like Elijah and Amber said, I think my first value would be a sense of home. I think that it is important to have a sense of kind of belonging and like a home-like sense in a company because you will like to be there, you'll be engaged more. It's just that sense of belonging where it'll make you want to work more, be more dedicated to your work. So I think that's my top one. My second one, I think one thing I value in a company from a college student's perspective is flexibility because I feel though with college, you never kind of know how your life is going to work out. That's also life in general. But just being able to have the flexibility to still take opportunities, even though I am pursuing my education. My third one, I think, would be, as they said, effective communication. Communication is key and it is essential. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Bora?
All right, so I have a little bit of what everyone said. My first one would be communication. I think that being a part of residence life has really brought that forward. That is something that I really want from an employee because it was something that we struggled with, and now we're getting so much better. And I realize how much more important that is to me, and to be able to have that. And so I think that communication plays a really huge part in what I want in in a company, or just a workplace. And then I think what Jasmine said, flexibility. I don't know. I've had past employers who um, have threatened to fire if I asked for um, a certain day off or something like that. It was something that I have not appreciated. So I think being there for your employer and making sure that they have everything they need, being flexible with that. And then I think my third one would be validation as well. But I would play into it feedback. I'm very much a person who appreciates feedback, knowing at all times how they're doing, if they're doing this right or not. So I think that I would really, really value a company that puts feedback at a very high standard.
Okay. Thank you all for answering that question for us. So the next question is, how important is diversity to you in the workplace, and how can an employer make you feel welcome?
Can you repeat it one more time, Lachey?
Yep. So how important is diversity to you in the workplace, and what can an employer do to make you feel welcome?
Well, to start off, diversity is very, very, very important because to recap on what my team and group communications class Brink talks about, you need different parts in a system in order for it to run. If we had 17 Phillips screws and a flathead screwdriver, we wouldn't be able to get anything together. So you need all the different parts and nails and staples and tapes to get it together. So that's diversity. You need everyone's different personalities, cultures, background, work ethics, and minds to make anything work. And for an employer standpoint, I think being abrasive is the biggest part of keeping that diversity in a workplace. And what I mean by abrasive is being willing to pick up on some of their cultural traits and make them feel comfortable and take that extra step to to learn some of their background or learn some of the things that they like to do and the music that they like or the food, the taste in food that they have, and just surprise them with the fact that you know it and are willing to embrace it and learn about it so that they feel comfortable talking to you about it. Because one big thing that I learned being here at Lakeland is if people don't feel comfortable with you and them showing you their culture, then that's where the divide comes, and then you have people being to themselves and things of that nature.
So I feel that it's similar to what Elijah said. I feel that just acknowledging that as a different perspective, their perspective is valuable. Also, going back to communication, you can't read people's minds, obviously. So if there's something that you need communicated, there's no such thing as too much communication. And knowing exactly what's going on when and what you need to do would help me personally feel welcomed.
Lachey, could you repeat the question, please?
Yep. So how important is diversity to you in the workplace, and what can an employer do to make you feel welcome?
I think diversity for me is very important in the workplace. I think it takes on more of a personal sense. You don't feel alone, but also, you know, there are others like you there. You feel like you could be a group, a team, and it just, like Elijah was saying, it creates that sense of we have these different pieces and they could work together. Also, I think employers can accommodate by, as some of them were saying, find out certain people's interests, understand where they are coming from, because sometimes that personal aspect of them is going to play a role in their professional aspect.
Thank you, Jasmine. And Bora.
Hi.
Hi. Good to see your face.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I think that I didn't realize how important being a diverse community or being part of a diverse community was before I even got to Lakeland. I say this a lot, but I come from Albania, and it is not diverse at all. So if you don't know that something is missing, you think that everything is okay, right? But then I came here and I noticed how great it is to be part of this community, and I wouldn't want it any other way. In my future job, I just would not want it any other way, because I have learned so much and grown so much as a person. And I think that when you share experiences with people that are completely different from you, it does not matter what intersectionality they're from. It's just so eye-opening, and you get so educated, and it's just a really good learning experience, and it doesn't just end there. It's an ongoing learning experience.
Awesome. Thank you all. So what I'm hearing is it's all about a sense of belonging, right? So for this next question, I want you to think about your experiences with your past employers and your experiences with your current employer now. So what the question is what do you want to see employers do to ensure their work environment is inclusive and equitable? So think about past experiences and experiences with your current employer.
Well, to start off, I think the biggest thing is, well, for me personally, in the past, at other jobs before I came to Lakeland, my biggest pet peeve was feeling like I was another number or another body on the floor. So always going around, and I guess some jobs use it as a threat sometimes, which I don't really think is good. But they always say that you can be replaced, and they use it as a tactic to make you work harder. But in my eyes, I think you should make your team feel valued and have that encouragement there, so that they want to work for you and not work for themselves and work to keep their job. I think that's a really big thing in the workforce that most factories and even some other jobs do. It they try to use that scare tactic of, oh, you can be replaced, we don't need you. but we want you to use that as a work ethic to stay here and work harder. So that'd be the first thing, is making them feel like you need them, and then they want to. And then once you do that, it creates the environment of, oh well, they need me, so I want to work for them, and we're gonna work together to better this job. And then honestly, after that, it's just the employer taking that extra step again, like I mentioned earlier, of getting to know their employers and simply knowing their name and asking them how their day is. I think simple conversations throughout the day like that can really make someone's day. You never know how someone's feeling when they come to work. Some people get up in the morning. I know most days I do. I wake up and I'm like, oh, I really don't feel like going to work today, or I really don't feel like clocking in from 9 to 5 all day today, and then having to do homework and then school. And so just giving them that conversation and that availability to be open to you as your boss, because I think someone mentioned it earlier, like being able to open up to your boss is really, really important. It gives you that safe haven of, oh, I can go to work and still be me. I don't have to put on a different bucket hat of, now I'm an employer of Johnsonville or employer of Sargento, and I got to be a completely different person. I would like to go to work and still be me, in a sense. So.
Thank you. Amber?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
Yep. So what do you want to see employers do to ensure their work environment is inclusive and equitable?
So, in order for an employer to feel inclusive, we keep hitting the same points, but it's important that there are people from different backgrounds so that people don't feel singled out, because I have had jobs in the past where I was the only person of color, or as a criminal justice major, I was the only female. And I think that it's important that you aren't singled out. For my security job, being the only female, there were a lot of derogatory sexist remarks made towards me, and it made me feel not welcome. So yeah, mostly just making sure that there's kind of an outline of what is not acceptable.
Thank you, Amber.
So, looking at the question, I think first, like just laying down the ground rules of what is tolerated and what isn't tolerated. I think that's key, so that people keep in mind, these are the things I'm allowed to do, but these are the things I'm not allowed to do. Also, I think just checking in, just seeing how things are. Is everything okay? How are you working with other people? What's going on? What can we improve? What do we need to change? How can we better help you? Just things of that nature.
Bora.
I think I touched on it a little bit earlier, but I think listening to your employer, I think it's very important. And then kind of what Elijah said, noticing the things that make them special, and then remembering it, doing something about it, something that tells them that you value them being there, that you want them there. And then I think Amber touched a really, really good point, that you have to lay ground rules of what is not acceptable and what you are not going to take from them, because then you honestly don't want to go to work feeling like that and being treated like that. And it's something that nobody should have to go through. And I think that if these rules are set and from the beginning, then it's much easier to say, this is what you knew was like. So then you strive for a better workplace, and you make everyone feel like they're welcomed. I mean, it's a pretty hard thing to do, but I think that the value of having a diverse team and not having a diverse team, it's just so much bigger. So yes, it might be harder, but the rewards are worth it.
Awesome. Thanks, Bora. So in order to do the good work of diversity, inclusion, and belonging is something that organizations and companies have to embody as a whole. It can't just be one entity trying to move it within a company. But in order for it to trickle down within an organization, it has to start at the top. So with administrators as well as with leadership. So how important is a diverse executive team to you all? So just take some time to think about that.
Could you repeat that one more time?
Yep. How important is a diverse executive team to you? So not only, who you would report to when you're working, but who your boss would report to. So how important is it that there's representation on the executive leadership team? So we want to think about representation at all levels.
Well, I think it goes back to just what we were talking about earlier and how you need different parts and different mechanics to make a team actually work. So from the top of the chain to the very bottom, you need that. You can't have all hammers at the top, just hammering down on people, telling them do this way, this is or the highway, because you have a different team below trying to be different, diverse, and try new things, and who are actually in the field every day making things go. And when they're just in the office, kind of reviewing it and saying, "Well, this is how we did it before, and it worked, so we're gonna keep it this way." And another thing that I learned was it's Latin. It's called excrete de corpi, and it's the spirit of the group. It's Latin, and I think the biggest thing that we need from executive level all the way down is the spirit of a group to be very, very emphasized in the positive nature. So it starts with the leader, whether it's an organization, job, or a fraternity, sorority, anything like that. Whoever the designated leader is has to start the group off right with the spirit and then the tone. So that has to go through executive leaders all the way down with the diversity included.
Thank you, Elijah.
So for me, I'm just going to use an example. When you're a kid and you are from a different background than like your peers or from the majority of the people, if you don't have role models that look like you, it's difficult for you to see yourself reaching these goals. So if you want to be a police officer or a doctor, but you see police officers and doctors that don't look like you, that aren't anything like you, it's going to be difficult for you as a kid to imagine reaching that. So I think just showing through a diverse executive or administrative group that there is room for improvement, that no matter what background you come from, you have the opportunity, if you work hard enough, to reach or advance to that point.
Thank you, Amber.
I think that it's essential to have diversity throughout the different layers of an organization or a company. As Amber was saying, it first gives off that representation of a role model. So people who may be in similar positions or who may be younger, wherever they are in life, have something to look up to saying, this person did it. I know I can make change. But also with having that diverseness, you have many different perspectives, many different experiences, lifestyles that could contribute to one and just bring these very collaborative ideas or things that wouldn't have been thought of. So, yeah.
Thank you. Bora?
I think no matter how much a person tries on an individual level and then, on a group, ultimately, the executive board or the people at the top are the policymakers and the ones that actually control the narrative. And I think it's so important to not have a group be the same exact thing coming from the same, exact same people coming from the same background, going to the same schools, having the same level of
money, having the same level of having the same experiences, because then you do not get different perspectives, you get the same. And when somebody isn't there to tell you to, okay, stop, look at it this way, then you're going to think that you're doing a good job. And nobody is perfect, but people do think that they are. So it's important to have people to tell you from time to time that you can do better and that you can make a workplace a more diverse place for your employees to be in. So I just think that no matter how important it is, on a very small level, it is 10 times more important for people at the top to have that diversity, because it's going to have a trickle effect and affect the lives of the ones that are quote unquote at the bottom. Just
Awesome. Yep, Elijah.
Yeah, something Boris said that I wanted to emphasize, I think is really important, is having people around you that challenge you every day. So I want to take the example of my fraternity brothers. We challenge each other every day to get better, to do good in school, and to try and learn something new every day, so that we don't end up in cruise control, and we're just on this steady pace of, oh, we're just gonna go through the motions. Having a team around you, or a exec board around you, who pushes you and challenges your ideas and disagrees with you from time to time, is very, very important, and it makes the workplace 10 times better.
Thank you for sharing that. So Jasmine, your hand's up. Go ahead.
Sorry, but just going off what they said, I think it just matters to like have somebody that represents you and to know that at least somebody is fighting for your cause. So, for example, like if I were working at a job and I knew that there was like a Black female who was higher up in the exec board, it's like I know that somebody has my best interest at heart, but also somebody else is making these decisions that will impact my life. I don't want to necessarily say in a more positive way, but in a more realistic way. Somebody who can relate to my struggle and know what life is like for me or for people like me.
Thank you. So all of you mentioned, how important having effective communication in the workplace is to you, but I want to dig into that a bit and go into the details on why. So could each of you give me an example on what was not effective communication in the workplace and how it interfered with the work culture?
We doing the same order still?
Yep, same order.
Okay. I want to say my sophomore year, I worked for this company, and the biggest thing that I had issues with, and a lot of the team members had issues with, was the transparencies that we were getting from our exec board, basically. And what I mean is, they had all these different rules and standards of what they needed us to have and what they wanted us to get done in a certain amount of time. But we didn't know until it was too late. So having that, like I said, we mentioned earlier, having that tone of what the work environment is supposed to be, and excuse me, what you expect from your workers, and be very, very transparent with your people, so that you have that communication. There was a very fine line of, or fine divide in the workers and then who was our bosses, and it was really one of those workplaces I'm sure everyone's went through, where like your boss is your boss, and the only thing you really talk to them about is scheduling or time off, and that was kind of the only thing. And that's one of my pet peeves, is not being able to talk to my boss about their day, the Packer game on Sunday, what's your favorite coffee. I like to have conversations with people, and when you have that big divide in the workforce, it's a really big issue.
Thank you. Amber?
Yeah, so can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, and then we're just talking about communication and why it's important, correct?
Yep, and an example, if you have one, of when communication wasn't, effective and it impacted the work culture.
So I do have an example. I worked currently at a coffee shop, and the communication levels throughout like all of the employment it's very rocky. I was trained by 5 different people, which is okay. I mean, I enjoyed having a different perspective. However, they're giving me different instructions. So when I do something a specific way, and I get told by my boss that I'm doing things wrong, it's really frustrating. So I think just having like fluid communication, and making sure that everybody's comfortable in the role that they're playing, and that under any circumstances there doesn't end up being a hostile environment, just because it can be very frustrating. And when emotions are involved, things do get messy, especially in a workplace.
Thank you.
I had an experience similar to Amber's. Last year, I worked for a company and the communication wasn't that great. It started with training. Similar to Amber, I got trained by different people. Different people are telling you how to do things in different ways. And some people say that's wrong, that's not how you do it. Or it could be the simple things as policies and things. They weren't communicated to me well in an effective manner. Sometimes companies expect you to kind of figure it out, and it's like you have to let me know. So, for example, I didn't know if I missed working a weekend, I would have to make that weekend up. And for me, that didn't work because I explained, hey, I'm in school. I can only do every other weekend. And now it's like, how am I supposed to do school, try to work for you, keep up this position? I'm communicating with you that I have 8 a.m.s, that, I have full days, and you're not reciprocating that back saying we could work with you, or explaining that, hey, this may not be for you, or our policies kind of contradict your lifestyle. So things like that.
Thank you, Jasmine. Bora.
Oh, I think I'm like sad that everyone has had that, because I've also had that happen where somebody didn't even tell somebody that, well, my boss didn't even tell somebody that they were on the schedule, so I had to cover for them in a day that I had planned to do homework, when I specifically had told her that I had to do homework. So it's kind of, if I communicate that and you don't communicate it back, then what I hear is I don't care about you. And all I care about is about making money. And that is okay. We live in a capitalistic society. That is okay. But to what extent? And you communicate so much more with your nonverbals than you do with your, or you communicate so much more with your actions, what you say with your words. And I think that if it's important from the beginning to have those conversations, because then I was left doing homework till 3 a.m. Because I got home late, and that there was no consideration for the fact that I was a student. And it goes to show that, as much as that one party tries to be a good communicator, it has to be both ways. Otherwise, it's just not going to work, and somebody's always going to be left doing more.
Thank you, Bora. Jasmine?
And I also think that communication kind of goes back to that transparency, because I feel like sometimes companies, organizations, employers communicate what we want to hear, but what's not necessary, or the things that we really need to hear. So they communicate the things that will attract us to the job, make the job, or whatever it may be, seem like it fits. And then the rest of it is just kind of left for us to figure out. So that's the uncommunicated part about it.
Thank you, Jasmine. So let's move on to the next question. So in your opinion, what efforts can recruiters put into hiring and supporting diverse workers? So think about your experiences going to job fairs, career fairs. What can they do to hire a more diverse workforce?
I want to say it starts with going back to the biggest point of being open and not necessarily going to these involvement fairs or these recruiting things with a mindset of you know who you want already. Be open to the people who coming to apply, who are just walking up to the table, and see what they have to offer. I know from helping at missions here on campus, I went to a couple involvement fairs, and some tables have the idea of who they want already. And I think that's a really big problem that you hop into this mindset of you know who you're looking for right away, especially like in that fair. It's not necessarily the interview right away. So just having that mindset of let's see what these people have to offer, no matter what they look like, what hair they got, what tattoos they got, and then jump into the well, these are also our standards of our job and apply those to the people instead of having that perfect worker imagined in your head already.
Thank you, Elijah. Amber?
Yeah, just to start, I really liked Elijah's point about not going into like recruiting or hiring with a specific image in mind. I've known so many talented and intellectual people who have been not chosen for a job because of tattoos or their appearance, but they have the potential to bring so much to this company. I also think just to ensure diversity and inclusiveness, just keeping in mind locations, recruitment. If you're recruiting the same exact way every single time you recruit, you're going to get the same exact people. So to just be open to different methods and ways of finding people who might not, for an example, just look for jobs on Indeed.
Thank you, Amber.
Shay, can you repeat the question, please?
Yep. So in your opinion, what efforts can recruiters put into hiring and supporting diverse workers?
I think first, as far as hiring, and in hiring, I'm thinking in the sense of more people wanting to apply for those positions, is that employers have to change our perception of what diversity is like. So when you said that, the first thing that kind of came to my mind was we're in Wisconsin, we're in Plymouth, Sheboygan. At least when I first got here, it's like, where are the people that look like me? And I'm sorry, I know I say people that look like me a lot. And sometimes I'm kind of just still shocked when I go into a store and I see someone who may have different colored braids or have the same skin color as me. So some of us kind of have this notion already that where we are is diverse, so the workplace isn't going to be diverse. And so you have to physically show us that you are different. So if you are doing a job fair or some type of career event, sometimes you see it's not a lot of diverseness in those areas. So maybe you bring a man and a woman. Maybe you bring people of different backgrounds to represent your company. Because I know sometimes when I see employers, it's like, okay, I possibly want to go. I don't know. But if I was able to see somebody I could relate to be like, oh, let me go over there and talk to them. Let me engage more. You work here, I could work here. I could have this experience you're having. And as far as supporting, yeah, I think just the transparency and being real and showing us that a place is diverse and that diverseness is real, changing our perception of it.
Thanks, Jasmine. Bora.
I think a recruiter, in order to be a recruiter and to realize their biases while recruiting, should attend a lot of diversity workshops. I think that I know sometimes that sounds like too much or undoable or, oh, this is stupid. There's a lot of people who think like that. Um, but I think that if you are in charge of literally someone's life by making the decision of hiring them or not, you should be well rounded and pick up on your biases immediately as soon as you notice them. Like, what is the real reason why I don't want to hire this person? And I think that that is really important, because a lot of people overlook that. Um, it gets overlooked so much. A person sees a name on an application that isn't the typical white name, and that application never even makes it to interview. And that is unacceptable. And I think that it should be unacceptable, and that it, you know, things to change it should be implemented, because it affects people's lives.
Thanks, Bora. And Elijah, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, just something that Jasmine brought up I wanted to talk about again is having that um diversity in the workplace is very important, because when she was talking about having like seeing somebody that looks like you or that you feel has some type of connection to you is very important. So if we're doing, let's say we were all on the admissions team for Lakeland and we went to Milwaukee, we don't want to bring someone that's from Kiel or Sheboygan to talk about Lakeland and necessarily their experience there, because it's going to be completely different from somebody that's from the in city who went to a public school and has like a whole different background. You want someone who can connect to them and talk about, oh, I graduated from this school. It might be their rival school. Now you're talking trash to each other about the whole rivalry, high school rivalries and stuff. And you just want to be able to give them that connection, which is why diversity is very, very important in the work field, because you can send those different people out to different locations. So you have a Kiel representative, you have a Wisconsin representative, you have a Texas or a Chicago representative, and that just encourages employers to reach out their branches farther. Like we were saying, you don't want to have 30 Kiel workers and one Milwaukee worker. You want to have a Chicago, a Texas, Albania. You want to have so many different workers so you can have so many different connections and different outreaches.
Thank you, Elijah. So I just want to touch on what each of the students were saying. So we all know that first impressions are very, very important when looking for a job. But I also want employers to recognize that some individuals that you come across don't have the same access to resources as other groups. So we all know that we make assumptions based off of how people look. So just want everyone to keep that in mind as well. So let's go on to the next question. Oh, Chris, did you?
Nope, I was going to check in with you. We have about 10 minutes left. We can continue to ask, I would say, one more question, and then we can take questions from the audience.
Yes. So I'm going to ask one last question for the student panel. So based on your experiences, what do you need more or less of in the workplace?
Can I just say my things? I need more empathy, and I need less taking things for granted, taking people for granted.
Okay. Thank you. And we don't have to go in the exact order, so anyone feel free to chime in.
You can go, Jasmine, if you had yours already.
I think, as we stated, transparency, but also, yeah, I forgot what I was about to say. You could go, Elijah. I'll go after you.
Okay. I was gonna say something we didn't really talk about, but is very important. I think a lot of people undermine a lot is we're all students every day, whether you graduated already or not. you have to get up and learn from, you're learning from somebody every day, and you have to take that into the workforce and life in general every day, because you don't know who you're going to learn from, whether they're younger, older, or even the same age as you, or even like you might have grown up with somebody for the longest and you don't know what you're going to learn from them. So like take that into heed when you're in the workforce. Like you don't know what people can offer, so be eager to catch on to what people are doing and be eager to just learn. Like I said, learning is something we do every day, and you don't know where it's going to come from. So take that into stride with your life.
Thank you, Elijah. Amber?
Yeah, so I definitely think it sounds so silly, but positive reinforcement, it really helps when your boss or somebody who is ranked above you tells you that you're doing a good job. I've had employers who, when I was a lifeguard, my supervisor would walk past me, he'd give me a high five, he'd be like, "Good job, Amber," and it would just like validate my hard work. Whereas if it hadn't happened, I might feel taken for granted, like I think Bora said. And then also less of, as Santi or Elijah said, telling or treating employees as numbers, as replaceable, just because again, it goes back to validation and feeling valued in your workplace.
Jasmine, did you remember that piece that you forgot?
Yeah, so I was saying transparency. I think some workplaces can use a little bit more of that. Sometimes it's beneficial just saying things how it is or just straightforwardly, but also stability. And I think I mean stability in the sense of earlier when I was talking about having that home-like environment and sense. Um, Sometimes when we talk about things that don't work in a work environment, we may talk about management or just how the pieces don't fit together. And I believe if there was more stability and more of a sense of togetherness, it'll make things better. So yeah, I think we need a little bit more of that.
Well, I just want to thank you all for answering our questions and for expressing what an inclusive workplace looks like for you all. So for the rest of the time we have, I just wanted to open this up to everyone who has joined us for any questions that you might have for our student panel. Feel free to unmute or drop your questions in the chat.
All right. So let's see. I have one question that I would like to ask. First of all, thank you all. Thank you, Amber, Elijah, Jasmine, Bora, for joining us today. I mean, I think that the information that you had, I learned quite a bit listening to your stories and listening to the different types of experiences you've had. So I really do appreciate you taking the time to tell us about things from your perspective, because not only diversity and diverse students, young students, female students, there's a lot to think about, and it's just great to be able to have voices, sharing and expressing those types of opinions and those thoughts. So one question that I would say then is, if you have, you've got a list of, I think about, and so we've got about 20 people on here today. One last thing, if you had the opportunity to say one thing, one sentence to an employer, what would that be? Yes, Jasmine.
Okay, so I think mine is a little longer than the sentence, but
Okay,
I was
sure.
thinking about it when Lachey and everyone else was talking. So we were talking about diversity and just how we need to bring different backgrounds into the work environment. And so basically the thought I had is we all have biases, whether it's from nature, nurture, how we grew up, whatever the case may be. And so in order to try to kind of eliminate some of those biases and to make diverse seem more normal, we have to implement it. So my only thing would be is don't wait to implement it, because you're only making the process more stagnant. If we could start implementing it now, then we could evolve more in the future.
Great, thank you. Anyone else have a sentence?
I do. I like Jasmine said, I think mine is a little bit longer than a sentence, but I think it's a really good quote that Charlie Krebs told me a while back, my sophomore year. It's, don't be afraid to change your lifestyle or your surroundings, because with change comes growth, and as human beings we need growth every day. So don't let that fear of getting outside of your comfort zone or putting those biases that we have away just for a moment, so you can embrace that change, because with that change you're going to grow as a person no matter what age you are.
And then for me personally, I think that I'm sorry, Bora. I think that the most important or impactful thing an employer could do is learn their employees' names. Just knowing their name, the pronunciation, it really means a lot, no matter what level you're on.
I think for me, it would be, please think of us as humans instead of numbers.
Thank you. And it looks like we have one question in the chat. So they wanted to know if you feel more welcomed into a space when you see translated languages throughout the space. Can anyone feel free to chime in?
For me, being an international student, that is something that I look at a lot. And I mean, something as simple as the CCEB at the Gross used to have my flag, and every time we would go for the GSA meetings, it would just warm my heart up, because most people don't know where Albania is in America. So the fact that it was up there just made me so happy and made me feel like I actually did belong here. And I think that the same goes for languages. You have to respect somebody's language. It's their identity. It's who they are. And by showing, by simply just putting it there, you are telling somebody that you appreciate them, you include them, and you want them here.
I'll go ahead and let one more person answer, considering we have 1 minute left. So go ahead, Jasmine.
So my first question I was going to ask is, it says welcome to a space we see. So do they mean like actually just see like different languages and different like around the space? Or as in like different people being represented?
And I don't know. Jackie is the other one to respond. Yes, go ahead, Jackie.
Thank you. Hi, Jasmine. So I think what I was trying to get into was, do you feel more welcomed into a space, not just of all languages, but that can also that can be part of it, but also of the languages that are prevalent in your community. So we know in Sheboygan County that would be the Spanish and Hmong populations. So if you, walk into a space as a diverse person yourself and see those languages, does that make you feel like this space is somewhere that you feel more welcomed, or is it something that you're not necessarily looking for when you walk into a space?
Okay, I'll be really quick. I think it is a space that will make me feel more welcome, but it will also make me feel more intrigued to learn about others and where they come from, and to be interested in who they are and their backgrounds and cultures and things like that.
Okay, well, we are at 12:01, so thank you all for having us and for joining us for the student panel.
Yes, thank you again, all of our students. We really do appreciate you taking part in this. Thank you, Lachey, for hosting this and asking the questions and the conversation. I appreciate all of your help with getting this started. And thank you to all of our attendees. We do have 4 more sessions in this series coming up throughout the rest of this semester. Next one is on October 7th. We'll have Jim Jones, Lakeland's Vice President of Human Resources. He's going to be talking about his experiences with laws dealing with DE&I and how those impact the workplace of human resources and just law in general. So by all means, if you haven't signed up for that, you can still sign up on Lakeland's website. And with that, thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and have a good rest of your day.